Oops. Sound on. There it is. So many things going on in our lives. So many things going on in other people's lives. And still we have this chance to come together. Breathing in and breathing out. Noticing what happens as the body begins to settle. Maybe we take a few extra special big breaths. Letting the breath come in. Maybe giving it a bigger, longer exhale. A couple of those, letting the breath come in the nostrils, noticing its coolness. Noticing as it's flowing out, its warmth at the nostrils. Finding a place as we settle, moving here and there, taking a couple extra breaths. Noticing the attitude of the mind as we settle. Letting the eyes close gently. Feeling the weight of the body, wherever it is, sitting on the cushion, leaning against the back. Feeling our body grounded in the chair that we're sitting in. Noticing our feet on the floor. Bit by bit, moment by moment, we bring ourselves away from the busyness of the outside world and let ourselves find the inner world, looking at the mind. If we want to get to know the mind, we need to sit down and look at it. We can notice all the ways we distract ourselves. That's part of the nature of being human, finding distractions that we do usually to make ourselves feel happier. Maybe right now sitting is not the best thing that you want to do. And you might want to stand in place or do slow walking in place. Breathing in and breathing out. Noticing the attitude of the mind. What's really happening right now? What is really happening right now? If we're noticing the touch point, can we get more refined of noticing pressure or warmth or tingling? This returning to the present moment brings us away from worrying about the past or planning the future. And it is in this moment that we can see clearly the nature of what is arising and passing away. If we find ourselves lost in thought or attending to sensations in the body over and over again, we might want to let ourselves choose the anchor of the touch point or the breath at the nostrils or at the belly. To come back into groundedness, to come back into the body. Breathing in, we can remind ourselves to be present and really know that we're breathing in. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. And by attending to every little movement around the breath, we can notice it keeps changing. We can find out directly that it is impermanent as it arises due to conditions that have come together on its own, and it releases and departs and begins again. And our attention to this as an anchor really helps deepen concentration in a way that can eventually bring a sense of calm. And other things arise in the mind. We can be present with whatever it is, holding it gently, noticing if it's pleasant or unpleasant, or we can't tell, or we're confused about it. It's the reminder over and over again to be aware and interested in what's happening. And if we find ourselves getting lost or caught or attached to something going on, we can go back to that breath or that touch point. If we find ourselves getting bored or lost in thought, taking us away from the present moment, we just begin again, right there in that moment, waking up to the present, noticing perhaps it was pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And we can go on from there, or we can go back to the breath. This process over and over again, of returning to the object or opening to the object as we are attending to it with mindfulness and awareness, helps us really experience directly the changing nature of everything. By noticing it one precious moment at a time. You may be aware of what's happening at the other sense doors as well. Internal hearing or external hearing. Being present for what comes to the sense door of the ear, without giving it a label or making the perception of what it is, just letting it be sound arriving to the ears. The pure sensation arriving at the sense doors, hearing, tasting, that touching, warmth, coolness. What arrives at the door of the nostrils, for now, could be the coolness of the breath as it comes in, or the warmth as it goes out. The door of the thought door tends to be predominant, many times, but just like the other sense doors, it's only one of the sense doors. We have constant sensations coming to us all of the time. Air against the skin. And what we have this chance to notice is that everything that arises can be held, met with full attention, and observed. The observation ultimately leads in realizing its impermanence. Its arising due to conditions stays for a certain amount of time and dissipates. And then our attention goes to the next thing. And we can begin to really notice directly that all of our bodily sensations, all of our hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, earth, air, water, fire, everything that is making up this entity that we call myself is also impermanent. It cannot be held onto. There's nothing to grasp onto. And that if we do grasp at something, that's when the suffering comes in. Dukkha arises due to attachment, due to craving, due to wanting something else to become, to be different, to change. So for now, with mindfulness and awareness, we're present all throughout the body. This spacious container, the breath breathing. And while doing this, we maintain a sense of kindness, kindness for ourselves, compassion for ourselves, holding whatever suffering arises with kindness. To continue to be present over and over again. Sometimes we might notice in those few moments that we are not lost in thought or confused or really don't know what's going on, don't quite know where we are. We might notice that there are different sensations throughout the body, there are different thoughts throughout the mind, that this is a moment-to-moment awareness of mindfulness being strung together with every moment that we can be aware. We may notice that some of our thoughts are not skillful, not helpful for us. And we can incline the heart and mind toward gentleness, toward kindness, toward some of what might be present for us in understanding some of the basic dharmic principles. We can certainly notice the first noble truth of suffering over and over again as we see what arises, passes. If we have attachment to wanting it to be different, we create ourselves suffering. And so we also notice the second noble truth of craving and clinging. So our mind is occupied in reflecting on the Dhamma. We may notice when we catch ourselves clinging to something. And the third noble truth of really realizing that there is release from this suffering, that there is nibbana, that freedom and awakening is available, can be understood through the Eightfold Path. And so if we find ourselves lost in thought, and we don't return back to the single object of the breath or the changing objects, we can reflect on skillful thoughts. We can notice unskillful thoughts after they've arisen. That's bringing mindfulness to the present. We can incline the heart and mind toward encouraging, toward cultivating skillful thoughts. Even before they arise or after they've arisen, we can maintain those skillful thoughts. May I be at ease. May those around me be at ease. take care of myself happily. When things are difficult, may I hold myself with kindness. May those around me, my family and friends, people in my neighborhood, and the extended sense of others in all directions, all beings wish to be happy, just as I wish to be happy. May I see clearly the nature of this suffering that happens. The impermanent nature of it. May I see it with compassion and with wisdom. The wisdom of that first noble truth. Compassion can help us with the courage and love that we need, the capacity to get through these epic and difficult times of strife and stress going on in our world, and all that stress within ourselves, that we need to develop this compassion for ourselves and for the world, to connect with it with the clarity of wisdom in our hearts, to do what we can to relieve suffering for ourselves and in the world. And so we hold this compassion in our hearts to include all beings. And the time is right to take action, even if it's small, to relieve suffering in the world. It arises from this metta, from this kindness that has flowed over into compassion. Even if it's just responding to someone that's having a hard time with a gentle touch on the shoulder, or holding the hand, or just bowing the head with another, just to indicate, I'm with you. So may we let this compassion and wisdom hold other beings, those that are close to us and those that are not, neutral people, even difficult people, those that we see and those that are unseen, animals that fly, animals that walk, animals that swim. May all beings everywhere have happiness and the causes of happiness. And holding in mind this feeling of compassion. I'm going to read a poem by Dana Markova, who lives in New Zealand. This is her poem, I Will Not Die an Unlived Life. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid and more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance to live. So that which came to me as a seed goes on to the next as a blossom, and that which came to me as a blossom goes on as a fruit. Thank you for your practice. May the merits of our practice be of benefit to all beings. And may you hold yourself in kindness and in joy as your eyes open and other shapes and perceptions come in. Just knowing that this internal sense of kindness and compassion and being present with what is, whatever it is, it really has benefit for all beings, whether we're formally meditating or whether we're out walking. Thank you for the practice.